Greetings, gamers. Today we're going to talk a little bit about beasts in Dungeons & Dragons 5e. Thank you for joining me. I'm Gregory. This is, of course, 1 in 20 D&D, and this is the DnDaily vlog, number 287, in fact, today. And I want to talk a little bit about beasts in 5e. And the reason I want to talk about this is because I've had this thought in my mind recently about a game using the 5e rules that had low to no magic, right? I mean, there would be some magic and so forth, but it would be sort of a low magic fantasy game, and maybe not even calling it a fantasy game, I guess, at that point. And the thought was, well, what kind of monsters would you use if you didn't want to use things that are sort of inherently magic, like dragons and beholders and all these other kind of things? And we have a list of beasts. There are animals of different shapes and sizes. Most of them can be found in Appendix A in the Monster Manual, but there are some other sources. But the beasts in 5e, they go from a challenge rating of 0 up to a challenge rating of only 8. That is, of course, the Tyrannosaurus Rex. And that's kind of limiting. If you intend to do a game where you're going to take characters up to high levels, and there's no beasts that are any tougher than an 8, well, what then? Of course, in a regular game, you could pull out all of the other demons and fiends and things like this. But if you want to sort of keep it a little bit more mundane, there's really no way to do that. And even if you don't, even if you're doing a high fantasy game, I still feel like the beasts are really limited in 5e. I'm going to give you just like 2 examples real quick here. Let's look at, for instance, the ape and the giant ape. Okay, the ape, right? It's a medium-sized creature. It's a 1/2 CR creature, right? By comparison, the giant ape, which of course I love, as I've talked about in my bard stories and others, the giant ape, right? The ape and the giant ape. The giant ape is huge, and it's a 7 CR, right? 7 challenge rating. That's a big jump, right? And it's interesting that it goes from ape at a medium size straight up to giant ape at huge. It feels like there should be something in the middle at a large size. Now, obviously, you can homebrew this, and I'll get into that in just a moment, because I want to give one other example here, the second example. I think that kind of illustrates what I'm talking about. Let's look at the crocodile and the giant crocodile. Crocodile is a large creature, okay, it's pretty big and long, that kind of makes sense, right? Still a 1/2 CR, and the giant crocodile is now huge, again, much bigger, not 2 sizes bigger like the ape to the giant ape, only 1 size bigger, but still a huge creature. And it's a 5 CR, 5 challenge rating. So not a huge jump. But how do we go from half straight up to 5? Feels like there should be something somewhere in the middle, like a 3. So, or maybe even something bigger. Like maybe there's a 10. Could there be a 10? Some kind of crocodile that's a 10? So, same thing with the ape, same thing with the elk and the giant elk, or I think there's a hyena and a giant hyena. There's all these creatures that have a sort of a regular size, a wolf and a giant wolf, or, you know, whatnot. So, they have these kind of different size ratings, but I don't know if that's enough. I don't feel like that gives us enough. And so I guess what that means is we have to kind of come back to the basics of D&D. At least in 5th edition. The basics of D&D in 5th edition is this. The rules are set down as a framework. Really, the 5e rules are not meant to be the whole kit and caboodle. They're not meant to be all that there is in the game. They're meant to be a foundation for us as DMs to work from. And what that basically tells me is, if I want to have a, let's say, 3 or 4 CR ape of some kind, then I need to make it myself. I need to manipulate the numbers, and maybe I'm going to call it a gorilla or something like this and make it a 3 CR. I'm going to give it hit points somewhere between the ape and the giant ape. I'm maybe going to give the damage a little boost, or maybe, you know, swing its AC one way or the other. Little things like this to make it pack a little more punch and so forth. But I still feel like there's something that could be done to make beasts a little more interesting, exciting, and challenging. I suppose the simple way to handle that is, what if it's a herd or a pack or a troop or whatever the appropriate term is for that type of animal? But like, you know, a pack of giant wolves is pretty darn scary. And yeah, sure, a single giant crocodile is kind of rough, but what if it's like a whole pool of giant crocodiles? That's going to change the playing field drastically. So there are, of course, ways to handle them, but I would love to have seen somewhere that there are more and nastier beasts. I mean, obviously, T-Rex is sort of at the top as far as predators go, but he's only a challenge rating of 8. I suppose I should mention the Tome of Beasts by Kobold Press. However, I haven't looked at that yet, so I don't really know. If you know about it, let me know, because there's supposed to be like over 400 new monsters in this compendium, and I would love to know if that's a great source to go to for great beasts for 5e. So how do we make something nastier than an 8 without being ridiculous and absurd? Answer that question for me. I'd love to know. I mean, I'm thinking about this, and I would like to hear your insights, so share them with us in the comments on this video. Hey, by the way, check out one of these 2 cool videos, and I'll see you tomorrow. Keep rolling 20s, and remember, it's your game. Play your way.